My name is Jeanne White-Ginder, and I'm the mother of Ryan White. I also have a daughter, Andrea White, who was very much a part of our story. My son, Ryan White, was born with hemophilia, factor VIII, and from the time he was born, he had many bleeds and hemorrhages in his joints and so forth. But Ryan, at the age of 13, contracted AIDS. Ryan was only supposed to live 3 to 6 months, but Ryan lived 5.5 years with AIDS, which was a very long time to live at that time in 1984. He was one of the first children and first hemophiliacs to come down with AIDS. There was very little information on AIDS at that time, and people were in fear and panic, and people were scared. People were scared because AIDS was such a fatal disease at the time. Ryan became famous, however, because of his fight to go to school. He fought for almost 9.5 months to go back to school. And continuing to fight, he became very popular within the media. The media loved him, it seemed like, and it just seemed like he wanted to teach people not to be afraid of people with AIDS, and that you had nothing to fear from him. This brought on a lot of media circus. He was on the cover of People magazine 3 times, the Saturday Evening Post, on the cover of Picture Week. He spoke at many, many events, including the Presidential AIDS Commission. He also did 321 Contact, that was nominated for an Emmy. He was on the Phil Donahue Show. He also spoke at Boys Town because he felt like these were kids that he wanted to be able to reach. And the priest there told us that these would be kids that gave you trouble, Ryan, had you been going to their school. So Ryan was very excited to talk to kids. He said, "Mom, kids listen." He said, "Adults don't think this is their problem. But us teenagers, we know it is, because we're the most likely to experiment with sex, drugs, and sexuality." So Ryan felt like it was very important to educate young people on AIDS. Ryan finally won the right to go back to school, but the prejudice was still there. So listening to medical facts was not enough, and people wanted 100% guarantees that their kids would not get AIDS from Ryan. Well, as Ryan always said, there's no 100% guarantees in life. But we made concessions after Ryan won the fight to go back to school. He had a separate restroom. He took no gym. He ate off of disposable eating utensils and trays. And even though we knew AIDS was not contracted, people still were afraid. I can remember one incident at school. Ryan called me at work. Ryan called me at work and he said, "Mom, I'm not sure what to do." And I said, "What's the matter?" He said, "Well, when I got to school, the outside of my locker was marked fag and other things." He said, "I can't take these things to class, Mom, or everybody will laugh." He said, "Mom, when I opened my locker, all my folders and books had fag and other things wrote on them." And I said, "Ryan, give me the principal." I had just had enough. We had fought in the courts for so long and just been discriminated against so much that I had just had enough. And I said, "Give me the principal." He said, "Mom, the principal's at another school." I said, "Ryan, there has to be somebody there at school." He said, "Mom, there's a secretary." The secretary came on the phone, and I said, "You know, I've never called a press conference in my life, but I'm about to call my very first one." I said, "You have 5 minutes to get him a new folder and new books, or I'm going to have every media in the country at that school." And Ryan calls me back and he said, "Mom, everything is cool." He said, "I got a new locker, I got new folders." He said, "Really, Mom, everything is okay." So at that time I realized that, we were going to live AIDS every day of our life, and it was never going to get any better. So thanks to a made-for-TV movie, which is available on Netflix, The Ryan White Story, we were able to move to Cicero, Indiana. And the president of the student body, Jill Stewart, lived 3 doors down. And when they heard that we were moving into the neighborhood, she went to school and told Tony Cook, the principal, "Let's make Ryan White welcome here." So we ended up moving Ryan. The first day we moved in, 5 kids stopped by the house to introduce themselves to Ryan. For the first time, Ryan said, "I feel like I've got everybody fighting this disease with me." And he said, "Mom, this is so cool." So he said, "I'm not fighting this disease alone anymore." So Ryan went to proms and he went to dances, and he even had a job at Maui's skateboard shop. So it was so neat to see my son not live every day with AIDS like he was dying with AIDS. He was living with AIDS and trying to make the most of his life. And during that time, he said, because I have all these kids helping me and supporting me, he said, this is how I can educate people. And that's when Ryan started appearing on all the talk shows and so forth. One of the things I think that was just so unique about Ryan, he never felt sorry for himself. He said, Mom, I know I'm going to die. This is just going to be another step up to it. He said, you know, I really think, Mom, that I'm going to a better place. He said, when the Lord wants me, he's going to take me. And I said, Ryan, I hope I have something to say about that. He said, no, really, Mom. He said, I'm not afraid to die. And I think he lived with that. I think he lived with that, you know, he wanted to do everything he could possibly do in such a short time, not knowing how long he had, but he had 5.5 years, which was a very, very long time. One of the very last events he did was with Ronald and Nancy Reagan. It was an Oscar party, and Ryan said, you know, Mom, we've never heard Reagan mention the word AIDS. And he said, if he'll appear with me, he said, I'll be there. So we ended up going, and Ryan was not well, and the next night we had to fly home with the red eye, and Ryan entered the hospital for the last time. Losing a child is the worst pain any mother could ever go through. Everybody says it gets easier, and it doesn't. You learn to live with it because you have to, not because you want to. I thought about my daughter, Andrea. There were so many times I thought, oh, how can I make it? How can I make it? And we took every day as a different day and thanked the Lord for another day. People say, how can you do what you do? I'm speaking all across the country on Ryan's legacy. And because of the Ryan White Care Act, there were so many opportunities given to me after Ryan passed away. Senator Kennedy called me and he said, you know, we're having these first hearings on the Ryan White Care Act. He said, we would like your voice. I said, oh, no. I said, Ryan did that, not me. He said, no, we really need your voice. I said, you know, I'm not smart enough. I'm afraid I would hurt the cause more than help the cause. He said, really think about it, okay? I was an emotional wreck. And then my friends from AMFAR, the American Foundation for AIDS Research, called and said, please do this on behalf of us living with AIDS. And I said, you know, I'm afraid, I said, I don't know anything about the government, the bill. They said, we know about the bill. The determining factor was, however, when Senator Hatch called me himself, he said, Jeannie, we're not going to take no for an answer. He said, I have 25 senators lined up for you. You tell these senators what it was like to watch your son live and die from AIDS. He said, really? He said, this is a chance to make a difference. And everybody's caring about people with AIDS now because of Ryan, the death of your son. He said, please do this on behalf of all people living with AIDS. So I went to D.C. and I really didn't feel like I did great. But for the first time, I felt like I had a story to share too. My son meant everything in the world to me, and I miss him so, so very much. And I'm so happy to be involved with hemophilia too now. The hemophilia community was in so much denial of AIDS, but I know I'm going to see my son someday soon. And you know what? He's not going to have hemophilia, and he's not going to have AIDS. Thank you.